now that I got the transmission taken care of and set aside for the day that we're gonna start tackling that, the next thing that we gotta do, yeah, it's something that I don't like doing twice or 3 times or 4 times. I just don't like do it again, but gotta figure out why. Yeah, with the 600 Big Bud is back in the shop. We got the new pump for the transmission, so the charge pump or the pressure pump or whatever you want to call it for the transmission is on, and that's going to be fixed. But that rear main axle wheel bearing that we thought was leaking out of the plug that I fixed 2 years ago, or Nick and I fixed 2 years ago, is still leaking a lot of oil on the floor. So we need to bring it in and we need to diagnose and figure out what is going on with that back wheel bearing assembly. Is it the seal? Did something happen and the nuts came loose and it's backed off, or is there something else going on? We got to figure out what's going on. So anyways, she's back in the shop for a little bit more maintenance and a little bit of love. Nick went ahead and took the plug out and gooped it and put it back in, so it's not the plug. It doesn't feel like there's any oil. I mean, there's a little bit of residue, but it's not like wet around the seal.
What he's talking about is this much oil. You see the residue all over like this? There should be a lot of it coming out of, if it's this seal right here.
Because if I take my hand, if it's the seal, it'd be leaking on the bottom. And if I take my hand and rub it, there's no oil residue. No oil residue on the bottom. So what that's telling me is the only way for it to leak is the seam right here or the cover.
It makes sense because this is a new seal that Scott put on.
And new bearings.
And new bearings. And so, and it's only had, what, 100 hours?
One season that didn't leak, and then last season it started leaking.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, it looks like something must have not sealed here or on the cover. So we'll inspect it, not expect it. We're expecting to find the problem, but inspecting it, we'll first take this cover off and kind of just see how it looks. Like, you know, if it's too thin somewhere, or mashed, and then it'll be this here. And what is this? Another gasket?
There's a big O-ring behind right here, and then I put goop on it when we put it together.
So it's not leaking this seam, you mean?
It could. It might be leaking out of the seam, might be leaking out of the cover, might be leaking out of here. But Nick took that apart and put some stuff on it, and it was leaking really bad inside the building. Either way, I got to take the cover off, and I got to take this and split it, and then I'll take a look at the bearings, see how tight the bearings are. We'll just kind of make sure that there's that the locking tab that locks those nuts together so they can't spin. We'll make sure that it didn't shear and the nuts back themselves off a little bit. Because if it backed off a little bit, what could be happening is it could be loose and leaking, but it should be coming out of the seal if that's the case, which I don't think that's the case, but we're going to still inspect it. So anyways, we'll figure it out. Well, I don't think it's contaminants of any bearings tearing apart, metal pieces, because the oil looks clean. The other thing too is the drain plug has actually got a magnet, as you can tell, and there's nothing stuck to the back of it. So it's not like bearings are bad. My suspicion is two things. Could be the seal right here that leaked around the cover, or it could be the back one right here. Well, if I'm suspecting it could be this one, I'm just gonna go ahead and split it, clean it all up, put more goo on it, slide it back together, and then hopefully it fixes it. But that's the best option. And then also do the same thing on the back, or the outside cover. All right, we got it back together and put some better silicone on. My suspicion is this red silicone that I used, I think that's the problem why it was leaking, because it just came right off. Like I didn't even have to, it basically fell off, meaning it was never stuck to the steel on the hub and the cap and all that. And so we put some stuff that says oil rated, keyword oil rated, and we'll let that cure. Nick's out here washing the rim off because it's kind of greasy and disgusting, and he's good at what he does. I mean, look at the guy. He's like a pro at it. He works a lot harder when you guys are watching, so appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Nope, it's going pretty good. Once he's done washing that off, then we'll take that tire and we'll try to put it on here, and keyword try. It never goes on easy because we've got to line everything up, but we'll get there. And then the next step is obviously start the tractor. There was a little dripping of hydraulic oil underneath the cap. So Nick jacked it up, and he think he found a hydraulic hose that was just slightly loose, so he tightened it up, and we'll see how that goes. But other than that, should be good to go, besides the tire. And then put the duals on it, put some oil in the back axle, all that good jazz. And I don't know, we'll go to the next step, which whatever that is, we'll pick something that needs to be worked on, because that's what we're doing, working on stuff.
I got a project going on right now. What we need is, we have a conveyor that we're going to take spring wheat out for this spring, but we want to treat it. Well, conveyors don't treat the wheat very well because it's just flat surface and then drops into the air cart, so it doesn't mix when you're dumping the clean wheat. The treaty on the seed, that's easy for me to say, right? Anyway, but we had some 10-inch augers over at the scrap yard, and I'm going to make a little over 12-foot long transfer auger that will go underneath the hopper bins. Then the seed treat will be down at the bottom, and then it will mix it, and by the time it gets there, it should be fairly well mixed, and then we'll dump it into the conveyor into the truck. So I got to get the necessary parts. I got to get a stub shaft. We're cutting this off here because it's going to be driven. The auger was one of the long augers. They were driven from the bottom by a PTO on the tractor. We're going to drive from the top with electric motor. I got a 3-horse coming. It's going to be 12 feet, so I should run it. But with that said, I've got to cut the shaft out, and that shaft is I think 1 1/8 inches that's holding it. but they welded a collar into the top of this tube here, and then it drives it. Well, I got to cut past the weld and then pound out or pound in so that we can, Scott can perform his magic on the new lathe, make a collar to slip inside this pipe that we can weld that 1.25 inch shaft, keyed shaft on there. Okay, so what I have going on right now is we got that end cut off, got the parts coming. When the keyway shaft comes, we'll build the stub collar that will, or stub shaft that'll stick in there for the drive and the bearings on the auger assembly itself. But what I got to do here is I'm going to create a hopper for it to catch the grain coming out of the hopper bins and funnel it down to the bottom of the auger. So I've got ourselves a brake. For those who don't know what a brake is, that's a bent piece that wasn't supposed to be. No, this is just a unit that we can slide pieces in and then bend them and try to get it to an angle we want. But I'm going to bend it in places, each half, and bend it around so it'll make the bottom of a conveyor auger bottom round, and then it'll come up to the top. So anyway, I'm going to cut some out of that scrap piece there, and we'll see how that turns out. So what I have now is I bent part of the hopper here to fit the inside diameter, the diameter. There's no E in that, is there? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this just inside, because there's about this much room in the flighting. It's a 9-inch and a 10-inch auger tube. And so I want it close enough down at this end so that it will scrape most of the seeds out. And it's such a short auger, it's not going to bounce, because we're going to have this end in a nylon block holding it. So anyway, that way it can just slide in without any ridge right there. So I've got the two halves. I'm getting it lined up. I've got this bottom angle on the bottom that sticks out past the hopper because we want something to tow, so I'll put a hitch on this so that we can hook it up and tow it where we need to go. So I'm going to put the two halves together, kind of line it up, and then weld it into place. I want about 22 inches to 2 feet roughly as far as an opening to allow the hopper grain to fall in. I can bend that out a little bit more after I get this secured together, and then I gotta just put an end and a side. Got an old auger wheel assembly. I think I have some tires to fit those 15-inch rims. I think they're 15. Anyway, no, yes, they're 15. And then I got to put the two pieces of auger together because one isn't quite long enough, and so they'll slide together and I'll weld it. We'll see what happens here.
So I'm going to help my dad out a little bit on getting some of this squared away. So basically what I got to do here is I got to make a plug. Well, actually I have a plug for this that we just pulled out. And I got to bore it out on the lathe, which is my favorite tool in the shop for the most part. So I got to bore it out so that this keyway shaft can slide through, and then we can weld it together and then weld that onto the flighting. So then that way it's going to be true. So basically going to take this piece and chuck it up in the lathe and then cut it out. And I did get the 6-jaw chuck. Man, he's noisy. Did get the 6-jaw. It's really noisy. He's using a Sawzall over there. Got the 6-jaw chuck mounted on the lathe, so I can use that now, which is sweet. So I do have a 3-jaw 10-inch chuck. I have a 12-inch 4-jaw chuck, and I have a 10-inch 6-jaw chuck. This one here, I noticed. There's noise. Okay, anyways, I did notice one of the jaws on this chuck has got slop in it, so I'll just have to watch it. The rest of them are pretty tight. But yeah, I don't know. So far, I like the 6-jaw chuck. Okay, let's blow a little bit of this off and let's get to work. So I noticed something about the 6-jaw chuck. It's not really centering. I am gonna have to switch back over to the 3-jaw because this thing is pretty wobbly. You probably can't see it on the camera, but that's not gonna slide. Let's turn it off and grab that 3-jaw chuck and put that on there. Okay, that's a bummer because I kind of liked how that one really was smooth. Like you can adjust the jaws really easy. The other one's brute. Even though that this was the same size shaft that I pulled out of that auger tubing, when I stuck it in there, it's had a little slop, so I welded a few tacks on it. I'm gonna put it in the lathe. I'm gonna turn those down just a little bit, and those are gonna be my centering piece to get it lined up. I think it's gonna work. We'll see. It's hot though. How'd your wheels turn out? Fine. Good. It'll be better in the long run. I can always take off a little bit more at a time, but the nice thing is if for some reason if I take it off too much, it's still a little slop, I'll just re-weld a little bit more, keep turning it down, and then that way I have a way to center it in the tube before I weld it. Because it'd be a shame, I got these two lined up with each other and they're perfect, and then I put it in the auger tube and then you weld it at an angle, your flighting is going to be like this the whole time with your pulley. So why not try to get it as true as possible the farmer way? Let's go see what happens. I think that'll work out really well. glued in there, so it ain't coming out. Grind off a little bit of that weld, make sure there's no sharp edges when we're just playing around with it, but that'll be pretty true. I ain't worried too much. Oh, it's a mess over here. I need to clean. It's not my job to clean the shop, is it? Probably is, because I made a mess. And we have a keywayed step shaft. So what we went ahead and did is we welded the two flightings together, and then we shoved it inside, made sure it's all the way to the front, or the top, I guess you could say. And then we measured on the back here where it's going to be and gave about about an inch of clearance. So then that way there's a little bit of movement in there, so it's not going to bind on that end, and it won't bind on this side. And excuse me. Then we pulled it back out, and the mark is right here, and so we're going to chop off the excess. And then I got to make a nylon bushing with a pivot point similar to this to go right here to carry the flighting on the end. So let's chop it.